Coming up next on Two Cops, One Donut.
And I wish I could tell you I was in a foot pursuit or fighting somebody or doing something cool, but I was at home with my wife. I just made my SWAT team. I just did my medical test. Everything was great. My wife had been accepted to medical school. We're happy. We got our house. Like, I mean, everything, life was good, man. There was no stresses. There was no other ulterior things going on. I was in a good place. And I said, "Hey, I'm gonna take the dog out." Put the book down. I took 2 steps towards my den door, and it was like freight train hit me. You ever had someone jump out and scare you? You know, and your
Oh,
heart
yeah.
skips that beat? Well, that flutter, that palpitation feeling, imagine it nonstop, like you can't recover from it. So even though I collapsed within about a second and a half, I experienced time distortion. So everything just slowed way, way down on me. And I remember going, this isn't right. And I remember bearing down and I tried to do combat breathing like we're taught, trying to lower my respiration rates. But it turns out when you're in cardiac arrest and there's no blood pumping to your brain or your lungs, they are physically incapable of expanding with oxygen. So in that moment, I started convulsing and trying to force myself to breathe. My jugular veins were distended. My face is dark purple. I'm going trying to force myself to breathe. My wife turns around, sees my face is this dark, dark purple, like someone choked a Smurf, and she immediately calls 911, drops the phone. I collapse back into my bookshelf, breaking every single tear on the way down. She tries to catch me, but my wife's small, man. She's 5'3". I'm 6'4". So I went right over and put my head through the wall. I land on my hands and my knees and I'm looking out in my hallway and I'm starting to get tunnel vision, but it's not like what we experience in the field where it's like hard to focus on things or you're looking through a coffee straw. It's this dark, dark purplish black. And basically I'm starting to see like the shapes and silhouettes of everything is going out. Everything is dark and it's literally like fluttering out. And I remember distinctly being like, well, this is it. And in that moment, here I'm a cop, I'm an EMT, I've done CPR, I've done medical aid, I don't know how many times, but in that moment, there's nothing I can do to save my own life. And that feeling of helplessness is not something I wish on anybody. At that moment, I dropped dead. My wife rolls me on my back. She starts doing CPR on me the way she was taught. She wasn't able to get the depth the way she wanted to, and I can't get ER doctors to think like this, but she put my feet up on the couch so all the oxygenated blood in my legs had gravity forcing it down to my core. She worked on me for 4.5 minutes before the first officer arrived. She had
Which
to
takes
stop.
forever.
She had to
That's a long
stop.
time.
It is, but she had to stop, pull the dog back, unlock the door. The officer comes in, sees me on my den floor dead, does a phenomenal job. He jumps on my chest. He was not equipped with an AED, but he starts compressing away, doing how he was trained. He worked on me until about 9.5 minute mark when fire and EMS finally arrived. They see my body, drag me out in the living room. They IO drill me in my leg, start pumping drugs. They start dropping the OPAs. I mean, they do all their advanced life support stuff. It wasn't until about 16 and a half minutes before they were able to resuscitate me, man.
All right, welcome back to Cops One Donut. I am your host, Eric Levine, and with me today is a special guest, Brandon Griffith. How you doing, brother?
Good, man. How you doing? Thanks for having me on.
Not a problem. I am in full study mode right now. I'm trying to study to be a sergeant.
Oh,
So
look at you.
I know slipping you in to get a podcast in at the beginning of the year. It's what's today? The 13th of January. So this will be aired much later, probably in February. I'm pretty far ahead. But that was the plan. I was recording a bunch of podcasts all at once. So when the test was released, the test material for sergeant, I was like, I ain't touching the podcast. I'm studying.
There you go.
Um, and so now I'm still in full study mode. Don't get me wrong, but if I can do a remote like this, because these are quicker for me, easier to edit and all that stuff, I was like, yeah, I'll get this one in. This one's worth it. We'll get you. And I got one other guy coming up, and then I think I'll be good until I take the test. I'm not gonna touch any more
Nice.
podcasts. So you should feel honored, sir. That's what I'm saying. No, I'm just
Appreciate it.
kidding. All right, brother. First and foremost, what is it that you do? Well, you're a cop. You're a detective. What is it?
Yeah, man. So I run a nonprofit called Griffith Blue Heart Nonprofit, where I'm the founder and CEO, and we specialize in preparing law enforcement for time sensitive medical emergencies. You know, your cardiac arrest, your bleeding control, your overdoses, your drownings, all the stuff we respond to all the time.
Okay.
But on top of that, yes, I am still a certified officer. I've been in law enforcement since 2008. I've been fortunate. I've worked as a FTO, crisis intervention. I've been a DT instructor, firearms instructor, SWAT, did a little drug interdiction. Now, currently, I'm not a real cop anymore. I'm just reserve. I do my hours per month. I'm working for
Gotcha.
Pinal County Sheriff's Office as a deputy reserve officer.
Hell yeah, that's a very famous, popular sheriff's office to work for too. You
It's a
guys got a
great
bad,
place, man. They let cops be cops, and there's a
yeah,
great leadership instilled there.
you got a badass sheriff for sure. He's got a good reputation for yeah, enforcing the law, which is it tells me that the court system backs him up over there, which is it's a fresh breath of fresh air.
It's unique.
Yeah. But luckily for where I'm at, I think the courts back us up most of the time. There are certain things, but I think that's everywhere. You're like, how the hell did that guy get out? And then you find out that it's like more of an investigative issue than it ever was the court's issue. So,
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
all right, brother. So the whole the whole reason for this podcast is bridging gaps, educating, and stuff like that. So citizens can get a good look at what law enforcement does just beyond just seeing the uniform. And it's not just law enforcement. I'll have prosecutors, all sorts of sides of the CJ system. But it's easier for me to get cops. So it is very heavily police dominated. So with you being sheriff, first I wanna get into your background. So where are you from? What's your education level? And did you have any what caused you to do a life of service?
Matt, so I'm Arizona native, born and raised. I absolutely love it out here. Um, I got into law enforcement back in 2008, but it's a little different, man. I grew up as a knucklehead, dude. I got in trouble nonstop. You know, I was the kid, the ADHD kid getting kicked out of class and detention and expelled all the time. But luckily for me, my parents got me into martial arts at a young age, and that helped me really hone and get my ass whooped when I needed it. And it gave me a direction. I ended up being around a lot of cops and a lot of military and guys that carried themselves differently. I love their sense of humor. I love the way they carried themselves. I saw the way that they acted. I got to do ride-alongs, and I was like, look, I'm going into military or law enforcement. You get adrenaline rushes. You get to go help people. I get to do stupid stuff. Like I'm all about that. I wanted to go into law enforcement at a young age, or at least military. And I fell in love with my girl in high school. I married my high school sweetheart. And as we're getting out, I was like, I don't want to go to the military with all the higher divorce rates and be away from her. I got something great here. I don't want to mess it up. So that's when I went into the private sector and I got became an EMT. And then once I was old enough, I went through and ended up testing and getting into law enforcement and haven't looked back. I love it.
Nice. I we got similar paths. I married my high school sweetheart. Except where you didn't do the military thing, I did.
Nice.
But yeah, you know, fortunately, unfortunately, she's still in the house, so she keeps putting up with me. We just had our 17th anniversary.
Nice.
And we got married on New Year's Eve. So we celebrated by going to the Dominican Republic.
I think we got our 19th anniversary coming up in May. So yeah.
Nice. Yeah, we waited to get married because our parents both been divorced like 3 times, and we're like, ugh, let's not go down. Like you said, this career field. I mean, both the military and police, high divorce rates, very
Absolutely.
high. And I have police in my family, so I kind of learned the ropes of what not to do from them, because of all of the divorce, alcoholism, dependencies on pharmaceuticals, stuff like that.
At least you learned and didn't emulate, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to skip the shortfalls and just enjoy the cool stuff, like you said, the dumb stuff. I'm still out there chasing bad guys. Like, even though I'm a detective, I got a team. We work property crimes, and I swear, once every 2 weeks we're in a foot pursuit, we're in a vehicle chase, something. I'm just like, I'm almost 40. How the hell am I still doing this
That's
stuff?
what it's
So,
about, man. Like I'm in the training side right now. And that's what I do predominantly is training. And I'm like, it doesn't compare to the rush of actually being in the field when you find that missing kid, when you get to save a life, when you get to do something that matters and put somebody in a cage that really, really deserve it. Like
Yeah.
there's nothing
But
like that feeling.
it's always awesome though to have a recruit or another officer come back to you and they're like, dude, that one tip that you told me, you know, like for an AED. I remember the training for AED. My instructor said, "What does it hurt to put it on there? Just if it doesn't do anything, it doesn't do anything. It knows what to do. Just use it." And I was like, "Okay, we'll get into that story later." But yeah, it's the same type of premise. But there's nothing better than having somebody you trained come back and it's like, dude, because of you, this happened.
Dude,
And you're like,
I live for that, man. When you get
yeah,
those phone calls when, hey man, I used that technique you taught me. I broke that guy's arm, or I ended up going home before I got the guy before he get out of his waistband. Or when you get those other phone calls that, hey, I just put a tourniquet on, I just used my Narcan, I just used my AED, and when you get those life saves, man, there's nothing like that feeling. Especially when you
yeah,
know the guys are excited about it and they get to make an
yep.
impact.
Yeah. So when we talk about that rush in the streets, I mean, us as police officers that really love what we do, there is other ways to get that fix, that high from the job, which I think is important. I think you should enjoy what you do, and I think there should be that reward system. It is a life of service, but you have to have the self service too. Otherwise, you burn out and you stop enjoying this job. So
Start
don't
getting
feel like you're
salty.
yeah. Don't and I try to tell this to cops, young cops. I'm like, don't feel like you can't be proud of what you do. Don't feel like what you do shouldn't make you happy. It's not. Yes, it is a life of service, but if somebody's trying to build you up or whatever it is, accept it. Like enjoy that moment, live for that moment because there's too many cops that they just don't want the attention. They don't want, and I tell them like, I think you need it. I think you need it because it helps push you and drive you. You can be humble. That's fine. Be humble about it, but don't be the guy that goes out of his way. Like, the salty guy. Yeah, it's like you said. It's like, man, just enjoy the ride. So, well, that's good to hear, brother. In your military, EMTs, nurses. What do you got in your family?
So I'm kind of the black sheep, man. Like,
Hell yeah.
they're all intellectual. My mom was a teacher. My dad was in computer and cybersecurities, and my grandfather was an engineer. My great grandfather was an engineer. Like, my grandfather was in the military. He ended up making nuclear bombs and stuff back in the army back in the day, and doing some cool stuff
Oh,
like that before he got into engineering. But I'm the only one on either side of my family that got into law enforcement, and no one knows where it came from. I was just that I
yeah.
had to be that guy. I want to do something different. I had to get those adrenaline junk. I had to get those adrenaline
Yeah.
dumps and get out there and do something.
Well, it's funny. I get what you're saying, but there is like this paradox or like there's similarities just as much as there's not similarities. But teachers, you're in the public eye. You're training. It's a community service in a way. Um, and then cybersecurity. I mean, that's that's internet cops. So knowing that the ins and outs of that, so you've kind of got two mixes there. And engineering, I'm sorry, I can't help you there. That's big brain things. I don't have that.
It
But
is.
not to knock cops. We have a high intellect for what we do because it's funny. We see people and instantly we're already picking up on behaviors and mannerisms and stuff because we're streetwise. That's a different type of intelligence where somebody else is very unassuming of a person.
It always amazes me, man. When we put on our training, we bring in doctors and some of our advisors, and we bring in EMS and battalion chiefs and stuff. And almost every single time afterwards, they're like, this is what you guys do before we get on scene. There's so much that you guys have to cover. There's so much you guys have to take care of before we actually get on scene when it's safe. And they don't think about what it's like when cops are on scene doing medical stuff and taking knives out of pockets so they don't stab the EMTs in the back of the ambulances. And they don't think about scene safety and coordination and just
Yep.
basic stuff that we take for granted. They don't think how cops think. And when it comes to evidence preservation and tactics, and I had one of our instructors from up north is trying to get into tactical medicine. So I we pulled him aside and started showing him some basic building clearing and stuff. And he's like, "Did we just spend an hour on talking how to go through a damn doorway?" he's like,
Yeah.
he's like, "I can never look at a building the same anymore once you know how angles work and once you understand
Yep.
what threats there are and known and unknown." And it always
The
baffles them.
best the best is okay, so this we go down rabbit holes on this show, so just get ready for that. since the podcast, I got back into gaming. I haven't played games in like 12 years. You know, I had kids, grew out of it, you know, just didn't have time. Well, the podcast stuff happened. I got this, you know, fancy computer, and my cousin hits me up and he's like, hey, we should play Counter-Strike. Remember when we used to play Counter-Strike? I'm like, okay, yeah, cool. It's an old ass game. It's still out there. And so we're playing Counter-Strike, and I'm playing with all his buddies that he's made over the years. None of them are cops. None of them are military. They're all like computer nerds. Like they do, you know, computer engineering, software development, stuff like that. So these guys have been playing this game for a long time. Since the game came out, they've been playing it, and they've been playing together. So they're very tightly knit. Even the most basics of room clearing for this game, the dynamics work in this game. And here I am the dummy, and I'm bad at the game, but I'm giving them the basics for going into an entryway, making a room, you know, the old school methods of, you know, having one be the rabbit while the other one comes in as the chase and stuff like that. And I'm like, listen, I want you to go in this door, and I want you to immediately turn to the left and just go straight. And I was like, and I'll cover all the area we can see. You get that blind corner. And so we're doing that stuff. And he, you know, he's like, holy shit, like that really worked, you know? And I'm like, that's just basic room clearing, stuff like that. He's like, cops know that stuff? Or is that your military side? I'm like, it's both. We train that stuff.
Dude, the military is so much farther behind law enforcement. Even when you look at the spec ops level, man, like I was doing classes with TACFL, and you see guys that are high level spec op dudes that are still doing outdated stuff. They're still button hooking into the unknown. You're like,
yep.
But it takes that force on force to get them to change, because the most dangerous phrase you always hear, this is the way we've always done it, until you pressure test it. So I remember with working with Rigo Durazo, and he'd take a rubber knife, and I'd set him in the room and say, okay, you do it the way you guys have always done it. And they'd make an entry to the room, and he'd cut down the first guy, turn around, trap him in the fatal funnel, and take out the entire team. And they're like, huh.
Look.
I'm like, look, it's basic math. 2 into the unknown. You get more guns in the room. You're disrupting the guy's OODA loop, and he has to respond now instead of attack. And then once you started pressure testing it, or, you know, mixing shields, doing split entries, they're like, oh shit, there's something to this. And it's like, all right, look, that's what I love about it. When you film it or when you pressure test it and say, you can do it the way you've always done it. We're not playing the gotcha game. We're not trying to say, hey, we're better than you. We're trying to show you different ways of doing it, and then testing it. And when they test it, they realize, hey, there's something to this. And you start seeing the gears turn. But yeah, everyone thinks that the military guys are the ones coming out and teaching law enforcement. But the reality is a lot of the military guys don't understand how law enforcement works. We have different rules of engagement. We have different ways of thinking. So they also have this little thing called attrition rate. So it's not acceptable for us if we make a house entry and, you know, 30% don't come back. That's not okay. So we have to do things a little bit safer. We can't frag grenade before we go into the house like they can. So we have to use safer tactics, be a little more methodical about it, or even on dynamic entries, using shields or using gas or any other tools at our disposal is completely different from the military guys. So they come out and they're usually behind the curve, and they have to learn how we do things. And law enforcement is going and teaching spec op guys now.
Yep. Yeah, I'm still in the Air Force. I'm a cop in the Air Force, and we do the building clearing and stuff like that. And I've learned that one of the big reasons they're so far behind is just the red tape through the government is ridiculous. It's bad in some police departments, don't get me wrong, but it's much easier to navigate in a much shorter time frame. If you want to change something in the military, if you change it in 5 years, that's fast.
Yeah, good luck.
Yeah, you can't change a whole lot quickly in the military. And that's just the way it is, and it does. It filters down slow. And you know, the only teams that really get that up-to-date training, you know, your SEALs, your Green Berets, stuff like that, but they're so small, it's easy they get whatever they want because they're the scalper.
Black credit card with no limit.
Yeah.
You hear some of those stories, they're like, oh yeah, we got this cool gun made for this one op, and then threw it over the ship because it never existed. You're like, what?
Yeah. So what was it like for your family as you being the black sheep, as you said, like when you were finally deciding to be a cop? What was the response? If you're law enforcement, stop and listen to me right now. If you're a police department that does not have an LPR system, Insight is offering the first 10 agencies, that means one agency apiece, gets one camera for free. You have to tell them that 2 Cops, 1 Donut sent you. You heard me right. If you're a police agency that does not have an LPR system yet, or does have an LPR system, and you're not happy with the product you have, Insight is offering you a free camera. no strings attached, and they will install it. I have 10 to give out. Tell them 2 Cops, 1 Donut sent you, or reach out to me and I will get you in contact. If you're a business owner or an HOA, please stop and listen to me right now. If you're just listening to the audio, do yourself a favor and watch the YouTube version of this episode to get a visual of what I'm about to tell you. I want to tell you guys about Insight LPR. It's a license plate reader. If your agency, community, or business is looking to invest in LPR to help solve and deter crime or to make your community safer, Insight LPR has my vote of confidence. I've met with their team. They know their LPRs, guys. They're the real deal. They bring over 75 years of collective experience to building LPR cameras and the software that supports communities across the country. The other thing I really like about this team is how much they listen to law enforcement. They understand the importance of working together with law enforcement and getting their input as they build and innovate products and their service to match the needs of law enforcement. In other words, when I complain or have suggestions to make their damn camera better, they actually do it. The Insight LPR team is extremely passionate and takes pride in their product development, which makes their cameras some of the most durable cameras in the market. For the gear nerds out there, what that means is this stuff's made of military grade aluminum and is nitrogen purged, whatever that means. This design makes the cameras rugged and able to withstand harsh weather elements. Here's the big selling point for me. Their nighttime scan accuracy is higher than most of the leading competitors. In my opinion, this is what sets them apart. As we know, the majority of crimes occur at night, so it's critical to have high scan accuracy at night. Insight's cameras check the box with the nighttime plate read accuracy greater than 96%. 96%, guys. That's pretty freaking high. If your community is looking to invest in LPR technology, reach out to one of their experts today or reach out to me. Tell them 2 Cops, 1 Donut sent you.
It was. They all supported me. They undyingly supported me, but especially from the rest of the family, they didn't quite understand why I was always volunteering to do the warrant roundups, why I was always going to do, trying to train with SWAT, going out there and doing containment team stuff and trying to train as much as possible and going to do the knife stuff. Like they were like, why do you always have to go to the most dangerous crap? Can't you find something to be more content with? But they realized that's who I am and they supported me. And there's been plenty of close calls. There's been plenty of times where you almost didn't come home, and there's been, times where you're in the news and times when you're not. And it's been a mixed feelings from the family. They've been very supportive of it, but at the same time, like once I started the nonprofit work and I stopped predominantly working in the field, 40, 60 hours a week, there was definitely a big sigh of relief from the family because I had too many close calls. But obviously my closest call was when I was off duty at home, so I always give them crap about it.
Yeah. Right. You think everything's so dangerous. I'm just sitting at home.
Yeah, my wife will make fun of me for it because I've been shot at, I've been in knife fights, I've been in burning buildings, I got trapped under a vehicle in a water rescue, and I died at home reading a book. Like, you can't make it up, man.
So you started in 08. I started in 06, so we got about the same amount of time in. And when you started, because sheriff's departments are a little different than municipal city police.
I did not start with sheriff, so.
Oh, you did not start with sheriff?
It's a long story, but I started in 2008. I had that mentality, you want to be one of the big brother agencies, so I wanted to be with Phoenix Police Department. And that's where I went through. I tested with 876 other applicants. I made number 1. They gave me the conditional.
What?
I started training. Like I signed the paperwork. I was on the payroll. I'm training, doing all the pulley work downtown, getting ready to go. They have my academy start date. Bam, recession hits. So we got slammed with the 08 recession and the hiring freeze. And they basically came to our entire class before we started the date, like a week or two before that, and said, hey, we just got hit with the hiring freeze. We're laying off your entire class. We're going to try to get you guys through a reserve academy in the next 6 months. But for now, you guys are laid off. And they just cut us. I already quit my other job. Everything was already done. So I'm like, well, can't go back to that. But I'm like, at least they're going to put me in the academy. Well, 6 months later, we get hey, your guys' application timed out. Best of luck. Like, what? So I ended up going through the Glendale Academy, and I got picked up by Buckeye Police Department, which is a municipal agency on the West Valley in Maricopa. And I ended up working with Buckeye for most of my career before I ended up dropping to reserve to focus on the nonprofit. And I did a little bit in Northern Arizona, and I only went to Pinal County Sheriff's Office last year in 2022.
Dude, that's so awesome. That's such a cool place. I'm so happy that I know somebody from there now. Folks, if you never looked at some of the videos that they put out there, they are fucking gold. They are gold. I love them. All right. So you started out with that. What was your patrol experience like? Was you on the streets right away? Were you stuck in a jail? How'd it go for you?
Oh man. So yeah, no, I went right to the streets and it was one of those you're in the middle of a recession, everyone's short staffed, everyone's short on money. And when I first got let loose, I was supposed to do 4 months of FTO. And before I finished my third phase, they were like, yeah, he's good, he's squared away. Just put him on his own. I'm like, nah, I got 1 more month left. I didn't even do my shadow phase. They're like, no, you're good. Well, shit. So they throw me on weekend swings. And at the time, because everything was all short staffed in the recession, my sergeant didn't come in till 8 o'clock at night and I started at 2. So at the time I was on a squad with 2 other guys covering
And no
680 square
supervisor?
miles. So it was basically like county. And I got one senior guy that was, always off doing his thing, and one guy that was obsessed with traffic and DUI. So I was covering all the calls while they were doing everything else. And I didn't have a sergeant come in until 8 o'clock at night. So I'm the brand new guy, still on probation. I don't even have someone to be like, hey, am I doing this right? Am I going to get in trouble? Like
Yeah.
I didn't have that reference point. I had to learn quickly. I was doing DVs by myself for a while there until we could get staff, until other guys got FTO. So I was thrown
Yeah.
right into the mix of it. And when I started with them, I was on a 3-man squad. And before I left in 2018, they were at like 7 to 8 man squads. It was one of the fastest growing cities in the country. It went from like 12,000 people to like 100,000 something people. So the city blew up and all these other opportunities. So I got to really quickly rise through and become an FTO and become a DT instructor and do all these other things that normally guys have to wait longer for. But there was such a need and we were growing so fast, we had to do it.
Yeah. It I'm glad you brought this up, even though this isn't really the point of this particular episode, but this is a good insight for the community here. Like a city that I'm in like the 12th largest department in the nation. I don't backup is, if they're 2 minutes away, they're far. Like that's a long way. And I've got not just my supervisor, like if my supervisor's taking a shit, there's 5 other supervisors right there that can step in. Now we're talking about where you were going as a rookie, which 0 to 5 years is our worst moments for us. This is when we can
Hell
get
yeah.
fired, thrown in prison, violate people's rights because we're trying to learn the job as it is. And
You don't know what you don't know.
and one of the points I try to make to people that aren't familiar with this job that are like, well, if you got people skills, you should be fine. I don't disagree. People skills are so huge in this job. However, good luck using people skills when now you've got going through your mind civil rights, the law, code. Do I even have a right to sit here and stop this person to talk to them? All these things are going through your head. Think about it, learning any new job. I want you to learn a new job and then still try to have a normal conversation with somebody. It's hard to do. Maybe it's easy for some people, but it was not easy for me, and I am a people person. That's just how I've always been. But that's the things that we got to worry about. And people skills are slowly dwindling. So imagine getting put in your position where you got
It
this.
wasn't even just that, man. My first day on the road by myself, man, we had one guy that was down booking in downtown, which was a 45-minute drive from our city. One guy was out doing his FSTs and whatnot from a DUI, and I'm watching the city by myself basically. I had a DV where a child had been choked. I got a tanker on fire on a freeway, and I had a subject brandishing a knife over by a gas station. I'm the only guy on the street 10-8, so I'm calling him like, how do I even prioritize this right now? We've got a minor getting choked, something's on fire, and someone's got a knife. Like, where do I even go? This is my
Right.
first shift solo, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't even have a supervisor so we're calling for help from other agencies, and I'm trying to prioritize. Like, that was the fire that I was thrown into at that time, and it was just like,
Yeah.
this is an awesome job. It was scary as hell, but like,
Yeah.
you always feel like you're ready. You want to act and puff your chest up, be like, oh, I'm ready to
Yeah.
go solo. But when you actually out there, you're like,
Yep.
at first you're like those hot calls come, you're like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. Then later on, like you're like, can we please get a hot call? I'm so bored.
Yeah.
As you progress through your career, you're looking forward to that kind of stuff. But it's
That's when
crazy how your mindset shifts.
you're the asshole on the radio. Sure is quiet out there tonight, ain't it?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
all the seniors are like, you motherfucker.
Stirring the pot.
Yeah. Yep. I found, taking those big calls and stuff like that, I was never nervous about handling the call. I was nervous about the paperwork and making sure I got all the steps right. Like, I don't want to screw up the second part, which is the investigation and the paperwork afterwards to finalize whatever enforcement that you were supposed to do. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
all right. Interesting. So all of that, sir, what has been your favorite part of your law enforcement? Was it the patrol? Is it teaching? What specifically are you into?
It was kind of surprising. Ever since I got in, I knew I wanted to. I knew I was going to go towards SWAT. I knew I wanted to become an operator. I knew I wanted to go into that realm. I knew I wanted to do. I've been a lifelong martial artist, so I knew I wanted to get into combatives. I knew I wanted to get in firearms training, but I never thought about being an FTO. And at the time, when they told me that we had this huge hiring burst and we were hiring all these cops, and they're like, "Yeah, we want you to be an FTO." I'm like, I'm not ready for that. Like, I'm in my like first 4 years. I'm like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. You want me to teach somebody else how to do this? And at the time, we had other guys that were FTOs on my department that were freaking soup sandwiches, man. You look at these guys being like, this guy is not. If he's doing it, I know I can do better than him. So I kind of got it thrown into it, but I give every part of myself to every project I do. So when I started becoming an FTO, I started surrounding myself with other leaders that I really looked up to. I started looking into what it meant to be an infield leader and becoming an FTO. Man, I didn't realize how much I was going to love it, man. When you're out there teaching somebody how to walk the walk and show them how to solve problems, when you show them how to do stuff, and they get their first dope load on a vehicle, starts doing some interdiction work. You see that excitement when you teach them a combatives move and they get to use it on that guy methed out the next call. Like, it's extremely cool. You get to build lifelong relationships with these OITs that I'm still friends with today, and watching them go on to become FTOs and do other things in the department has been extremely cool. I absolutely did not expect it, but I love being an FTO.
Awesome. Yeah, again, we're trying to teach people that don't do this job and stuff like that there is more than just shagging calls. Teaching is a big one, and even cops, people that are considering getting in this position. I just had a conversation with a kid the other day on a search warrant. Um, he's stuck. We're investigating his dad, but his son was there, and he's probably 16, 17 years old, and he was working on a truck when we rolled up. And so, we freeze the scene, we get everybody in one location, and I'm stuck. I'm not stuck. I volunteered to be the keep them busy guy. So while all the officers went and searched and did their thing, so I'm talking and small talking the guy and talk to the kid. I'm like, "Hey man," I was like, "You want to be a cop, don't you?" He's like, "Hell no." He's like, I like working on vehicles." I goes, "We have that. Like that's a position. Like you could be the guy that any patrol cars that get wrecked, any new cars that come in, you get to outfit them, you get to pick, you get to help decide what type of vehicles we're going to get. You get to do all of that stuff." And I was like, "And you get city benefits and all that stuff." And you just see the light bulb go off. So I like that you're pointing out that you like to teach, because people don't think of that when it comes to law enforcement. They just see the
Or
patrol
that
side.
community relationship, man, showing them how to actually build relations in the community, man. Like getting out, tossing the football at the kid, giving them some stickers, or buying them an ice cream cone when the ice cream truck goes through. Those kids remember you, and next time you're in the neighborhood doing stuff, they want to be a witness. Say, "Hey, Officer Griffith, let me tell you something real quick. I just saw the guy doing this." Or they're not afraid to talk to cops when you start building that relationship early. When you start going into your gas stations and your local businesses and introducing yourself and talking with the owners, man, do they love working with you. They love being able to call you. I had so many informants that would tell me the criminal activity, and most of the time we'd have something going on, and I'd make a couple phone calls, and before the end of shift, we were able to get some intel just from people that live in the community that weren't afraid to talk to us. And that, showing your OITs how to build those relationships and that trust and being able to have that, man, is invaluable to building a successful department and actual crime suppression, not just looking at the people you serve as another crime stat number or another comp stat or anything else like that. Look, this is the community you're in. You can make a difference by having these active relations and stuff. And showing them how to do that has been so cool.
Yeah, and I think it breathes fresh air into an officer, no matter how long they've been on, when they see those little deposits work out. And that's why I tell people, I'm like, man, you need to get enrichment from this career if you're going to survive it, because we've already got enough health factors going against us anyway. So if you're not getting satisfaction, and your stress and your cortisol levels and all that stuff start going up, like you are in it for disaster. Like shit can happen. But
I'm glad you said that, but they also need to have the relationship outside of work. They need to have other things they like to,
yes.
because most cops don't prepare for, what if I can't do this job tomorrow? What if I'm in
Hmm.
that car accident? What if I'm stabbed? What if I have a brain aneurysm? What if, whatever happens to you? Like my incident was a cardiac arrest, and literally in a heartbeat, I'm 26 facing medical retirement, and I may not have a job tomorrow. And most cops, Like I was way too young for it. I had just made my SWAT team 2 weeks prior. So my identity was I was still that young guy. Like I am a cop.
Yeah.
That's who I am. No, that's not who you are.
No,
It's what you do. And
it's what you do. Fuck yeah.
when you have that kind of entwined identity, man, do you guys get depression and we have all these higher
Yeah.
suicide rates because they don't invest outside of it. They start hanging out with solely with other police officers. They're not looking at relationships outside of it. They're not looking at other hobbies. They're not seeing their skill sets in other areas, and they're not planning for those what ifs. We play the what if game of what happens on the street, but what if tomorrow I can't put this uniform on? What happens if I'm fired or I end up in IA, whatever it may be?
Yeah.
Guys have huge mental health problems because they don't invest enough time off duty as well.
Yep. I was an instructor for 3 years at the academy, and it was one of the things I tried to hit home with them. I'm like, listen, it's really easy to have all your off-duty friends be your on-duty friends. Like that's just the nature of this job, especially when you first start out. And I think it's important because you're gonna depend on those guys. They're probably on your team and all that stuff. I was like, but if you don't take the time to get friends outside of this career field, especially guys like me, I didn't grow up in Texas. Everybody that I know down here, I made friends with, outside. Vice versa, if had I been a cop at home, I would have had tons of friends outside of police work already. But being here, I made friends, but I was very strategic because I want friends from outside of law enforcement. I have to get away from this job because exactly what you said. I just preached this like 2 days ago. I'm so glad you said it. Oh, the exact same way I did. I said this career is something. It's not who I am. It's just something I do. It's a part. I don't make it me, so to speak. So I like that. Actually, I'm gonna make that the YouTube clip too. And when I do the little teaser for this episode, I'm gonna cut that out, and that's what it's gonna be. So, thanks for that. But let's get into your story, man. So for those listening, yes, Brandon is a police officer. He's got the career going. He's got all that stuff. But this episode has a theme, and it's going to be health and medical care and stuff like that through law enforcement. So give us a little background on what happened to you, Brandon.
Yeah, it's kind of like I was saying before. My wife makes fun of me a lot because I died reading a book after all the other crap that I've been through, and I wish I could tell you I was in a foot pursuit or fighting somebody or doing something cool, but I was at home with my wife. I just made my SWAT team. I just did my medical test. Everything was great. My wife had been accepted to medical school. We're happy. We got our house. Like I mean, everything. Life was good, man. There was no stresses. There was no other ulterior things going on. I was in a good place, and I said, "Hey, I'm gonna take the dog out." Put the book down. I took 2 steps towards my den door, and it was like freight train hit me. You ever had someone jump out and scare you? And your heart skips that beat. Well, that flutter, that palpitation feeling, imagine it nonstop, like you can't recover from it. So even though I collapsed within about a second and a half, I experienced time distortion. So everything just slowed way, way down on me. And I remember going, this isn't right. And I remember bearing down and I tried to do combat breathing like we're taught, trying to lower my respiration rates. But it turns out when you're in cardiac arrest and there's no blood pumping to your brain or your lungs, they are physically incapable of expanding with oxygen. So in that moment, I started convulsing and trying to force myself to breathe. My jugular veins were distended. My face is dark purple. I'm going trying to force myself to breathe. My wife turns around, sees my face as this dark, dark purple, like someone choked a Smurf. And she immediately calls 911, drops the phone. I collapse back into my bookshelf, breaking every single tear on the way down. She tries to catch me, but my wife is small, man. She's 5'3". I'm 6'4". So I went right over and put my head through the wall. I land on my hands and my knees and I'm looking out in my hallway and I'm starting to get tunnel vision, but it's not like what we experience in the field where it's like hard to focus on things or you're looking through a coffee straw. It's this dark, dark purplish black. And basically I'm starting to see like the shapes and silhouettes of everything is going out. Everything is dark and it's literally like fluttering out. And I remember distinctly being like, well, this is it. And in that moment, here I'm a cop, I'm an EMT, I've done CPR, I've done medical aid, I don't know how many times, but in that moment, there's nothing I can do to save my own life. And that feeling of helplessness is not something I wish on anybody. At that moment, I drop dead. My wife rolls me on my back. She starts doing CPR on me the way she was taught. She wasn't able to get the depth the way she wanted to, and I can't get ER doctors to think like this, but she put my feet up on the couch, so all the oxygenated blood in my legs had gravity forcing it down to my core. She worked on me for 4.5 minutes before the first officer arrived. She had to
Which
stop.
takes forever.
She had to stop.
That's a long
It
time.
is, but she had to stop, pull the dog back, unlock the door. The officer comes in, sees me on my den floor dead, does a phenomenal job. He jumps on my chest. He was not equipped with an AED, but he starts compressing away, doing how he was trained. He worked on me until about 9.5 minute mark when fire and EMS finally arrived. They see my body, drag me out in the living room. They IO drill me in my leg, start pumping drugs. They start dropping the OPAs. I mean, they do all their advanced life support stuff. It wasn't until about 16 and a half minutes before they were able to resuscitate me. Man, I was brought back from death, and that's when I kind of sat up, started pushing guys off me. I don't remember that part. Man, my wife grabbed me by my face, said, "Don't leave me." I said, "I won't." I collapsed backwards, and from that moment on, I remember coming back. I remember the pain like you wouldn't believe. My arms and legs hadn't been oxygenated properly. It felt like daggers everywhere, like that pins and needle feeling when you fall asleep on your arm or leg, but like on steroids. My chest had been caved in. I
Really?
got blood in my mouth when they dropped the OPA in. I got that tingly feeling like after you've been tased. But worst of all was my head. Like every single heartbeat I was seeing white flashes, and it felt like someone was taking a sledgehammer to the top of my head. That pain was so horrific, man. But according to the crew, I was in the back of the ambulance, talking shit, calling them hose draggers, cracking jokes. I don't remember any part of that. I woke up in the hospital, and for the next 5 days, I was in and out of consciousness. My brain was, damaged from oxygen deprivation. So it was like 10-second time. I collapse, I wake back up. What happened? Oh, you died. This is what's going on. Collapse back out. Wake up. There's a whole new room of people sitting in front of me. It was these blurs. They ran every single test possible, and they never found a diagnosis. My heart's healthier than a horse. There was no electrical defects. There was no plumbing issues. They broke my blood down to chromosomic levels. No genetic anything. Cardiac MRIs, stress tests, you name it. I was just one of those, just like we've recently seen in the media with professional athletes and celebrities. I was one of those that just had an electrical misfire, the wrong time, and I dropped dead. It can happen to anyone, anywhere, anytime. The only difference was I was a cop. And literally overnight, I was labeled damaged goods. I lost my spot on my SWAT team. And now it was, he can't go back to work. They had to put this medical device in my chest, this defibrillator, to shock me in case it ever happened again. There's no evidence to say it's going to happen again. They have no diagnosis, but it was a precautionary measure so I don't die if it happens again. So
Yeah.
now I have to go. Well, can I even work as a cop with a defibrillator in my chest? What is this? What do the regulations say? What do the boards say? What does risk management say? And overnight, I'm fighting for my job, man. I had to. It took about 6 months. And luckily, my assistant chief at the time, Chief Mark Mann, had my back, and he went to bat for me. And we ended up bringing in experts and researchers and cardiac arrest doctors with tons of alphabet letters after their names, and they came through and they helped me. They really helped me get back to work, man. They proved that not only am I okay to go back to work, I'm safer than any other officer. Like if you collapse right now, and by the way, cops are at a 70 times higher risk of heart disease. If you drop right now from heart disease, you need CPR and AED in the first 4 to 5 minutes, so your chance of survival is next to nothing. Me, I get shocked before I hit the ground. So I mean, this thing is implanted; it's already in my heart. I'm safer than anybody, and I'm on medication to prevent anything from happening. So it kind of thrusted me into a different path. Now I the mental health roller coaster I went into after that, not being able to have my job, facing losing my career, and not knowing if I'm going to die again, not knowing what's going on in my heart, all the other mental health stuff that accompanies heart disease started tackling on with me, and it put me in a different spot. You know what I mean?
How did you, how long did it take you to gain the confidence back to even like, you know, run, to do anything that you think was going to, I can only imagine, like if something happened to my heart, I would be very paranoid to do anything.
So it's weird. I was never afraid to do anything after that. Like they told me, when they put this thing in your chest, you can't lift more than 10 pounds for the first couple months, while your heart tissue's healing over it. They kept me doped up so I wouldn't work out, so I wouldn't do stuff. So my wife is literally feeding me these like lorazepam and muscle relaxers and painkillers, all this stuff to keep me doped up because I wanted nothing more than to get back. I wanted to get back on my mountain bike. I wanted to get back into combatives. I wanted to get back to everything. And it's one of those like when you face your mortality, everyone asks you, didn't that mess with your life? You and have this, and you died and literally came back. And like, look, every time I put that uniform on, you don't know if you're going home. You really don't. I've been shot at. I've had a lot of situations. I've buried too many friends in the line of duty, and I struggled more with survivor's guilt. Here I had buddies that were killed in the line of duty, whether it be motor vehicle accidents or gunfire, that I consider better men than me. They weren't given a second chance, but I was. And when you start diving into the cardiac numbers and the mortality rates, the fact that we lost, I mean, last year we lost 697,000 Americans to heart disease. I was one that was spared. Less than 7% survived. So that was really like, why was I given a second chance when so many other, kids, infants, other people that didn't even have a chance to live their life weren't given that? And I had to struggle with that, but no, they couldn't keep me down. In fact, when I was doing my own cardiac rehab, I pushed myself well beyond my limits way too often. I went out mountain biking. I collapsed in the desert, ended up back in the hospital with my SWAT medic because I was pushing myself too hard. And man, my family was pissed off at me for that. They're like, you can't do this. But I'm like, look, there's nothing wrong with my heart. I'm not a heart patient. I didn't have a heart attack. I'm
Yeah.
not some old man with clogged arteries. Like I had an electrical malfunction. Anyone can have it any time. There's nothing wrong with it structured. The doctor's giving me a clean bill of health, and I got this thing to protect me. I'm not going to let this stop me doing from what I do. I did obstacle course mud races. I did 5Ks. And that was the hard part is even going back to work, even my own guys wanted to treat me like some fragile ass China doll. They were like, can you do this
Wow.
with your heart condition? It's like, I don't have a heart condition. I had to literally go in there and out bench, out fight. I had to show them that I wasn't this fragile China doll to
Yeah.
to counter this culture and show them that to remove the stigmas. And it took a long time for these guys to realize that I
Yeah.
wasn't some fragile guy that was going to collapse.
Yeah. I mean it's just inherently natural to do that. Even we had a guy on my department, Matt Pierce, he got shot 9 times, I think. And when he first came back, it was like, one, holy fuck, how the hell did you come back from that? Um, and then two, it was hard to not treat him like a patient versus treating him just like another coworker. I remember specifically, I'm like, dude, are you good? Like, you can do it? Yeah, I'm fine. He's like, quit fucking with me, Levine. He's like,
It's how it
same
is,
shit.
man. Is this
Yeah.
true? Is this going to trigger you, man? Oh, shut up! Like they would do that to you, and to this day, man, you still got people that want to treat you differently and treat you like there's something wrong with you, and it's like, man, that's it's incredibly detrimental to your mental health, and everyone's treating you differently, like you're some
Yeah.
fragile China doll. And can you go back to doing what he's doing? And I had to shatter a lot of stigmas, but so many survivors are afraid to work out. They're afraid of having it happen again. I'm like, what's the worst that happens? You die? Like you already been there. It's already happened. And you get this thing in your chest that shocks you. Like,
Yeah.
what is there to be afraid of? And
Yeah.
I refuse to live my life in that fear. I could die. You can have a brain aneurysm. You get struck by lightning. You can get shot in the line of duty, car accident, whatever. It could happen to anyone, anywhere. Why am I going to worry about that? I've been given a second chance. I'm going to earn it.
Yeah. I got a friend in the hospital right now, coworker, triple bypass surgery. He had a mild heart attack on duty, 2 days ago. 2 days ago. He's 54. He's older, but yeah, the shit can hit any of us anytime.
And that's the
But
hard part is that most cops don't realize the toll that this job takes on our hearts. We are at a 70 times higher risk of heart disease than the general public we serve. And we have a life expectancy of 15 to 20 years less than the public. And
yep.
everyone prepares we all go to the range, we all prepare for that deadly encounter, but we're 25 times more likely to drop on or off duty from heart disease than a violent encounter. And that's something that just baffles me. Everyone wants to prepare for this and that, but they don't have AEDs in their home. They don't train their spouses. They don't train their roommates.
Yeah.
They don't prepare for their kids dropping. And it's like we had 1,100 fatal police shootings last year, but 697,000 Americans died from heart disease. What's
Can
the real threat?
can we get AEDs for home use?
Hell yeah. You can go on
Really?
Amazon and buy one, bro. Like, look, there's one right there behind me. Like,
Well, I
I'm
get it
telling
for
you, like,
you, but I've never even thought of that. I just thought that was something like shit. I would assume they cost 10 grand. I don't know.
no, man. I mean, they have. It depends on which one you get. A lot of the manufacturers will trick you. They'll sell it to you the cheaper up front, but then the pads and batteries have to be replaced a lot more frequently, and they're more expensive. But no, I mean, you can get them from, $600 to, like, 2,000, depending on what bells and whistles and features you want. You can
Oh,
get them on Amazon distributors. They got them at like supply stores, and that's what we're trying to get rid of the stigmas on. Is that we're at the highest risk of going down, and if 4 out of 5 incidents happen at home, but all the cardiac community focuses on is public access defibrillation. It's like you got to have them in your airports, you got to have them in your sports arenas, you got to have. Absolutely, I support that 100%. But that's only 13% of cases. 77% happen inside the home. Most of the time, fire
mm,
and EMS doesn't get on scene until 8 to 16 minutes. Cops are a lot faster. We're usually on scene in the first 1 to 4 minutes, especially municipal agencies. But we need to start getting AEDs and people taking this shit serious in their own home, because young athletic males are at the highest risk. That 16-year-old kid playing basketball, or your swimmer, your lacrosse player, whatever they're into, they're at the higher risk than grandpa is. And that's what people don't realize, is that like your cardiomyopathies, your genetic, your Wolf Parkinson's whites, all these other things that affect the heart are happening to younger and younger people. We lose 30,000 kids under the age of 18 per year, and nobody bats an eye at it. Everyone loses their mind when an athlete drops on national TV, but they don't look at the fact that we lose almost 30,000 kids per year.
no shit. I didn't know that either, man.
And it's hard because no one cares about it. And I will tell you, I'll be the first to tell you, the cardiac community has failed. Everyone knows about overdoses. Everyone knows about Narcan. The Stop the Bleed program has been very successful in getting tourniquets everywhere. But I say cardiac arrest, and everyone's like, "Oh, you had a heart attack." No, I didn't have a heart attack. I had an electrical malfunction, and nobody knows that
Yeah.
cardiac arrest kills 1,000 Americans per day. And this is what our number one threat is. And everyone talks about, my husband's a cop, my wife's a firefighter, thing happens, they'll be good. Well, no, we're the ones that are at the highest risk of going down. What are you going to do when Eric drops in your living room tonight? Is your wife prepared? Do you have an AED? No.
Yeah.
Most guys don't. Most guys don't prepare their
Oh.
family members for it. Most guys aren't prepared when their perfectly healthy 17-year-old daughter drops dead in the middle of volleyball, like we just had last week. I mean, it's there's not enough media coverage, there's not enough reportage of it, and the cardiac community has not done enough to educate the public about it, get them to care.
Damn, I had no clue, man. And what's crazy, similar to you, this is where that one of the stories I was going to tell you. So I'm working at the academy. Early morning, all the instructors we work out. So we're running. A lot of times the SWAT guys are also working out same place. And one of the SWAT guys just got done with a run, walks through the gym. Morning, Levine. Morning, Jamie, who's another instructor. He just about gets to the hallway. I hear the door open. I hear boom. He collapses. He's in the doorway. Had he taken 2 more steps, no one would have known he was out there because it's early morning. Nobody would have found him for maybe a half hour. Collapses in the doorway. Same thing that you described was going on with him. The veins, the foaming. Initially, me and Jamie thought he was having a seizure. I was like, what the fuck is going on? Like, holy shit. We both run over to him. And Jamie's like, I think he's having a seizure. And I was like, all right, let me go grab the AED. Cause like I told you, the one thing that I remember is like, it can't hurt. So just go get it. So Jamie's like, well, he'll come out of it. He'll come out of it. I was like, I'll get it just in case. Fuck it. So I run, I grab it, put it on him. And that bitch was like, get back.
Hell yeah.
And I was like, holy shit. And we both look at each other and it shocked him. And it shocked him like 7 times. It finally got him. Luckily for our police academy, our fire academy is right next to it. So we had guys run over to go get help from them because they got all the medical stuff. And meanwhile, we're letting the AED do its thing, trying to comfort him the best we can. It turns out when he finally went to the doctor and they figured out what was wrong with him and all that stuff, which I don't know the specifics. I just know that they said for what happened to him, whatever fibrillation he was in or whatever they call it, rhythm,
BFib.
you've got about a 1 minute to 2 minute window, and it almost always has to be an electrical signal sent through it. Compressions probably won't work. And I was like, that opened
So
my eyes.
that's where most people see, because TV is utter bullshit, and everyone likes to emulate what they see on TV, and that crap where they do CPR for a minute or so or 30 seconds and the person goes and wakes up. That shit does not happen.
Yeah.
All right, when your buddy and when I went in a cardiac arrest, basically there's 2 shockable rhythms. The AED only identifies those 2 rhythms: ventricular fibrillation or ventricular tachycardia. VFib is basically the heart is in this quivering motion, pumping into itself. Without defibrillation to shock it back into the right rhythm, it's going to stay in that deadly arrhythmia, right? Or ventricular tachycardia, or imagine the heart is just beating so fast that it's not filling up with enough blood to pump back out. Those are the two shockable rhythms that the AED does. And everyone thinks that CPR does not save lives. CPR provides oxygenated blood to the brain long enough to get defibrillation. So that's what CPR does. When you're compressing away at someone's heart, you are manually pumping blood through their body to keep them alive long enough to get shocked by one of these things back here. If you don't get that defibrillation, it's not like TV where they flatline and go, doo. You're not restarting a dead battery, right?
Yeah.
You're shocking them out of a deadly arrhythmia. There's still electrical activity going on. And you most of the time, if you can get the pads on in the first 2 to 5 minutes, you can significantly increase survival by 70 to 80%. That's the big difference. And that's why we focus so much of our programs on police resuscitation, is because cops are usually on scene within the first 1 to 4.5 minutes, where we have the highest likelihood of resuscitation. We're already on scene. We're already doing CPR on that kid we pulled out of the pool. We're already doing all this crap. Give us the life-saving tools we need to do our jobs effectively. We're not here to replace EMTs. We're not here to become medics. I'm keeping them alive long enough for the pros to get on scene and take over.
Yeah. Yeah. It's luckily I got a department that has money and, gets the equipment, and we've got just in our training facility, there's an AED probably every damn 100 yards. So
Do you have one in your vehicle?
yeah, they have them in the patrol vehicles.
Good.
Yeah.
You need to have them in the vehicles, man, because there's so many times also with officers, man. And they, like you talked about your buddy going down at the academy, the guy that did CPR on me collapsed in the station. My buddy dropped right after briefing. It's not just a matter of having them in your buildings. We got guys collapse on the field all the time. And there's several situations where it's not safe for fire and EMS to come through. Guys don't think about that blood loss induces cardiac arrest, exposure to narcotics. When those overdoses happen and the Narcan doesn't work and you need CPR and defibrillation, you need the AEDs. There's a lot of times where fire and EMS aren't coming in. You're it. You can compress on them all day and they're not coming back without that defibrillation. So I'm glad your department takes it serious, because only about 20% of agencies around the country have AEDs in their patrol vehicles.
Yeah,
And
we
most
have
of them
a
don't have a system of care to really support it. They're not getting high performance training. You're getting some leftover crap every 1 to 5 years for a refresher or 2 hours with a clicker mannequin that no one takes serious. And there's no chain of command. There's no policies. There's no dispatch protocols to optimize it. There's no sustainability. A lot of the programs usually fail within 2 to 4 years if they're not operated correctly.
yeah, our TAC Med unit trains our recruits, and they do the AED stuff. They do here's a pig carcass with blood pumping out of it, stuff gauze in it. They get all the fun stuff, and then we have the continuous training for the officers already in the field and whatnot. And it's always good. And my favorite part about the class, and it's annual. We got to take it annually. Is you get to restock on all the stuff you use throughout the year. You get your Israeli bandages and gauze and all that other good stuff. So, which is my favorite bandage. I always bring up the Israeli bandage. Too many people don't know what that is. So
Yep.
look it up, folks. It's the best.
Ah, man. Everyone talks about all the stuff, but I'm a huge fan of the XTs. If you haven't played with the Sam Medical stuff yet, they're freaking phenomenal, man. It's like beefed up cat tourniquet, but it actually has a ratchet that locks in place. Grab you one, but yeah, I've used cat tourniquets. I've had a ton of saves of them in the field, but the Velcro can slip on it. Using those XTs, man, where it locks into place and it's got that metal rod,
Yep.
makes it a lot easier when you're doing it.
That's what we have. Same thing, and we also have the like the polymer case, carrying case to keep them in, holster, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
So you don't get it all, because they get wrecked over the year, so we change them out pretty regularly. Again, I'm very fortunate. I'm at a department that has the money for it, so in the backing, so it works out. But with that said, and in your awareness and stuff on this, what did you start to implement after, or what troubles did you see after this event happened that caused you to start creating things?
Man, I went back to the field and I realized how unprepared most law enforcement agencies are. I'm sitting there going, look, we're already on scene doing CPR. The guy that responded to me didn't have an AED. Most cops don't. But on top of that, our training is shit. Like I said, you're lucky if you get a refresher every 1 to 5 years, and it's like some some bullshit PowerPoint that none of us care about. It's like, you call 911, you get an AED, and
Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
over dramatic. And we're like, all right, you take all of a minute, 2 minutes of compressions on a clicker mannequin, and they go, hey, you're certified, get out there. None of them are factoring in the variables that we actually face when that mom hands you that blue baby and expects you to save them and be proficient in what you're doing. When you're doing CPR on a dead guy in a living room and the uncle's in there that you just arrested 2 months ago and you're surrounded by drugs, you're doing CPR one-handed coordinating fire department. They're not the classes we do don't incorporate tactics. They don't incorporate officer safety. They don't incorporate evidence preservation. There's no realism. There's no stress. There's no pressure. And that's one of the things that we notice is that you know how it is when it comes to you can shoot paper all day, but it doesn't translate to what actually happens when you get in a gunfight. If you're not doing force on force, if you're not doing sims training, you're doing your guys a disservice. Same thing when it comes to resuscitation. If you're not using actors, if you're not using feedback mannequins that are measuring depth, recoil, perfusion of the brain, uh, fractionality limitations, all this stuff, then you're really shortchanging yourself. So we wanted to create a high performance resuscitation course specifically for cops that incorporates what we do: officer down drills, TCCC, bleeding control, overdoses, excited delirium, all the crap that we face constantly anyway. We wanted to focus it with building of muscle memory and triggering of the parasympathetic nervous system. We want to put you under stress so you have a blueprint to draw from when it actually hits in the field, right? But we wanted to help agencies get AEDs. We wanted to help them do programs and sustain it. How do we actually make a successful one? Because most of the cardiac industry doesn't know what cops need. We're kind of in the middle, right? Like we're not protected by Good Samaritan laws. We're required to be first responders. We're also not having the same protocol levels as fire and EMS. We're not privy to that. We don't work directly with our medical directors. We're the step kids right in the middle and no one knows what to do with us. So we had to create custom programs to support it, from dispatch protocols to sustainability to field deployment plans to you name it. We had to figure out a way to bring in these experts to create programs custom for law enforcement. So after I hit the field, I started doing this on the side, kind of doing some consulting, helping agencies get AEDs, helping them get grants, helping them do, partner with EMS partners or hospitals or people that want to fund it, and then building these programs to be successful and tailored to law enforcement. So eventually it became Griffith Blue Heart, 501c3 nonprofit. And that's what we do is we prepare, train, and equip law enforcement for these time sensitive medical emergencies.
Okay. So if you are just listening to the podcast right now, I am actually going to bring up the website. I got griffithblueheart.com up here. If you're listening. So walk me through this site, mister.
Oh man, so you got our homepage, and we have all of, if you want to support us or donate us, we have the Help Cops Save Lives campaign. We ask people to donate and help support because these programs are not cheap when it comes to law enforcement training, when it comes to replacement pads, batteries, bleeding control gear, Narcan. This stuff adds up. So we're always looking for donations and support. We got our About Us page with our history, bios for our crew, our services. We break down everything. If you want to do a la carte, or if you want to learn about our policies or get some templates, or you want to do chain of command, or you want health and wellness speaking, whatever you want, it lists all of our services, our media and resources. Me and my guys are columnists for Police One, so we regularly contribute articles. You got a ton of podcasts our guys have been on, news stories and whatnot. We got our training schedule up on there. If you want to come out and be with one of our fundraisers or sign up for one of our courses, it's on there. If you want to contact us for training for your agency, hit us up. We have a contact us right on the website. We would love to come out and train your guys. We got a store. We also have our coffee. We've been very fortunate. We partnered up with Real American Heroes Coffee and Filthy Pirate Coffee Company, and they sell coffee for us, and all the proceeds go directly to our life-saving resuscitation programs. So it's a pretty cool program. Those that love good coffee, try that out, and it helps us save lives too.
Very cool. Yeah, I'm oh, you got Randy Sutton. I had him on the podcast.
I got to co-host Blue Lives Radio with him, man. He's a great guy.
Oh, very neat. That's
Badge Boys and Behind the Shield, and I've been fortunate, man. People keep booking me to yap and flap my gums.
nice. Nice. I need to do this for my website. I've been on several podcasts myself, and I just never I never do this. I like this. It's very cool. All right. With the coffee, I'm a coffee junkie, buddy. So
Hell yes.
I've got a subscription to Black Rifle, so I'm curious about the coffee.
So, man, one, Both the companies I work with are veteran and first responder owned and operated. So, real
Awesome.
American heroes. They're actively in the military, Air Force guys. One of them is a Tempe firefighter. Filthy Pirate Coffee from Dan Spencer, ex SWAT. He's retired, Marine, SWAT operator. Phenomenal coffee, man. Very low acidity, great roasts. And this one was actually named after my wife who saved my life, Melissa's Heartstopper. It's a coconut rum latte, and it is freaking awesome.
Ooh.
And then this one for all my diehard cops that love dark roasts. The Griffith Blue Heart Blend is a dark roast, and man, I'll send you a bag, bro. I think you're gonna really like it. It's good stuff, and
All
it helps
right.
us save lives,
Yeah, I'm all about that coconut rum. That sounds delicious.
dude. It's
Yeah.
some good stuff. Every time we do our trainings, every time we do events, we either have them come out and serve and sell coffee, or we have our own coffee pots that we're serving through. And most of the time, guys are like, "Yo, where do I get that?" And hey, the link's on our website. Go
Hell
grab yourself a
yeah.
bag and help support it.
That would be sweet. Man, they could sponsor this podcast if they want. I love that type of stuff.
I
That'd be
got some
sweet.
contacts for you.
Hell yeah. I've been trying to get there's a bourbon called American, I think it's called. Just and I'm like, that's a fucking cool name. And then I find out it's like military veteran owned and made here in America, stuff like that. And I was like, that's the stuff that I try to get on the show. And a lot of time, if this wasn't such an early morning podcast with you and I, normally we'd be sipping some whiskey and shooting shit. But
There you go.
I didn't want my wife to yell at me if we started sipping bourbon this early. She's like, what are you drinking already for? It's for the
Read
podcast,
your
babe.
mind right now.
Yeah, yeah. I have a bang. I try not to.
Ah,
I try not to drink those too often, but when I don't have time to sit there and make the coffee or whatever, I'll sip one of these.
yeah, dude. Just speak. That's one of the things I talk about, man. Cops, we know those guys that crack open one after the next, and
No.
energy drinks caused atrial fibrillation. Tons of studies, even on the short term effects. The long term effects are still out, but
Yeah.
basically, energy drinks are about the worst thing you can put in your body when it comes to
Yeah.
regular consumption. And they tackle your heart. They tackle a whole bunch of other complications. They mess with your sleep
Yep.
cycles. Like I try to tell guys, there's plenty of guys that get atrial fibrillation and all kinds of other complications. And I'm like, stop drinking that shit and cut
Yeah.
down your sodium. These guys are doing sunflower seeds and energy drinks all shift. You're like, what do you think's
Yep.
gonna happen?
Yeah. I try when I do drink these, like I open this at 8 a.m. and I'm still sipping on it. It's probably about to there right now. So I try to slow go it all day, just little pieces at a time. But yeah, you're right. I know they're bad. I try not to. I like coffee. But you know, like you said, something's gonna take me out. I just hope it's not the energy drinks. Yeah. I don't have the addiction though that I like you said. I see some midnights guys are like, oh, it's the beginning of shift, I need my bang. Oh, it's lunchtime, I need my bang. Oh, it's the end of shift, I need my bang. I'm like, what is wrong with you?
Happens all the time, man. These guys will literally
Yeah,
walk in with like 4 or 5 of them and kill them all in the shift. You're like, how the hell are you still
I
breathing
know.
right now? Like,
Yep, it's crazy. Military guys are just as bad because they're like, I need three things. I need hate, I need dip, and I need bangs or whatever
yep.
energy drink they're into. I'm like, you guys are nuts. All right, so you got the website going. What's the success been? What have you guys been able to get done through other departments?
You know what? We're very fortunate, man. The agencies that we have partnered with, once fully implemented, we are able to quadruple survival, man. And we've been very fortunate. We partnered with some other amazing organizations like Health First Foundation in Northern Arizona. Just gave us $100,000 grant. We just trained, and we are currently outfitting all of like Flagstaff Police Department. So they put all their officers through high performance training and dispatch protocols and chain of command and all the other stuff that comes with it. And their AEDs should be getting shipped out here in February. We're going to be able to give them 55 AEDs for all their patrol vehicles. Like when we did it with Sedona Police Department. I mean, they're a small agency, man. They got 27 cops from the chief down, and they only have a live-in population of 12,000 people. And the first year alone, we had 23 AED applications and 9 saves.
Wow.
So, I mean, we are quadrupling survival, where most of the nation is at about 7 to 9%, and that needle has not budged in decades. Cops, we're just finding, are very good at resuscitation. Our independent study on police resuscitation is going extremely well. Cops are better than ER docs and physicians and nurses for the most part when it comes to high quality compressions. We're used to thriving under stress and pressure. We're used to building muscle memory, and we're used to those fine motor skills. So cops are just killing it when it comes to resuscitation. And we're going back and they're retaining it. We're going back 6 months to a year later, and cops are still killing it. So it's been very eye opening. The successes and the numbers speak for themselves, and we're trying to grow it because I mean, shit, 10 years ago, how many cops are carrying tourniquets? How many cops are carrying Narcan?
Yeah.
Not many. This is kind of the next stage in the evolution. We cops now have more saves from bleeding control and from overdose reversals than fire and EMS combined. Same thing when it comes to resuscitation. We're already doing this. If we give them the AEDs we need, we're going to see a significant. I'm not exaggerating when I say we could save a couple 100,000 lives per year if every law enforcement officer was trained and outfitted with high performance resuscitation and
Yeah.
AEDs. So we're trying to get this kind of spread like wildfire and continue to grow these programs because they're saving a ton of lives.
It seems to be the trend of police work. Oh man, I'm getting a lot of pops and clicks in my headphone all of a sudden. What was that? There
So
it goes.
I.
It's crazy that that's how police work is. Like we the Narcan thing. We'll just bring that one up. Like all of a sudden it went across like wildfire, and then all of a sudden like we've got it nailed. Like everybody's getting it, and it just improves and improves. And then body cameras, that was another thing. Like they're like, oh, we need them, and it's gonna improve things. And then it's slow, but then all of a sudden it gets the momentum, and here we are. Now everybody's got not just a body camera; they got cameras all over their cars. It's always for the best, and it just seems like in police work, heart issues have been at the forefront for forever, as long as I can remember, at least since the 70s. And then we've done very little. Like that momentum, that catch fire thing really hasn't happened the same way.
Well, it's there's a lot of variables that go into that, and that's what we had to figure out. Why isn't this a success? Why isn't this working? Because the cardiac industry has been trying to get law enforcement to carry AEDs since the early '90s, and it just hasn't worked out. And that's because no one's done a systematic approach for it before. They literally just throw them in the back of cop cars and hope it works out, right? It doesn't
Yeah.
work that way. You can't just throw them in the back of a car and not have a system of care. I mean, some agencies, I'll give you an example. One of the largest agencies in our state, as soon as you go 911, what's your emergency? You say someone's not breathing, like someone collapsed. As soon as it's labeled as a medical call, it goes straight to fire and EMS. And there could be a cop a block away on a traffic stop that has no idea someone's dying and they could have made a difference. So you have to optimize dispatch protocols to make sure, hey, are we even responding to this shit? We have to look at how do we sustain the program? How do we make sure that this thing is taken care of? Who's going to oversee it? It gets assigned to, oh, he used to be a medic, so he's going to be in charge of the program. And then when so and so retires, leaves, or gets fired, the program crumbles. I mean, so many people in the sales industry, they'll sell you the AED and move on to the next one, and then the program fails in the first 2 to 4 years. That's where we specialize. We go in there and we want to optimize programs for law enforcement and show you how to do this sustainable and make sure that we're using it appropriately and getting high performance training. And plus, before, cops didn't care about it. Cops were not thought about for medical calls, especially in the '90s and back in the day. Like, tell fire to roll. This guy doesn't look good. That was medical care for cops. It was, I'm not doing it. We're not trained. We're not licensed. We're not EMTs. But as time has progressed, after you started getting the Columbines and all these other situations, we started carrying bleeding control kits in case we got shot. But all of a sudden, you're rolling up on that suicide attempt or that gunshot victim, and we're using our own kits to save them. And all of a sudden, we got more saves than fire and EMS. Huge pushback for Narcan. Hey, we're not carrying pharmaceuticals. We're not medics. All of a sudden, hey, put this in your nose and squirt. It caught on, and all of a sudden, we got more saves than fire and EMS. I could teach an orangutan 2 stickers and push a button. You save someone's life. You said it yourself. You slapped it on your buddy, and it shocked him 7 times. It's like it's extremely easy to use. They got pictures, some of them have videos to walk you through it. This is kind of that next stage and trying to get cops to really care about it. And it's more of a self-preservation thing too. It's protecting our own self. We're at the higher risk in the public we serve. But on top of that, do you really want to be the guy that's sitting there when you pull that kid out of the pool and you can't do anything about it? Or when you respond to that teenager in the gym that just collapsed during basketball practice and you're compressing away and fire's not going to get on scene for another 7 minutes? Do you want to be in that situation? No, no cop does. We want to be able to do our jobs effectively, and we need the tools to do that. This is what we specialize in doing.
That's what I loved about our AED when I used it. It took the guesswork out. It told me step by step what to do. I was like, because as you're grabbing it, and it's a lot different when it's an unknown citizen. like my stress level is actually lower. But when it's
Oh yeah.
your
Bunch of
buddy and
buddy.
somebody you know, and all of a sudden you're emotionally invested into this one particular person, and you're like, holy shit, like you want to make sure you're doing it all right. And yeah, it just walked me through it, told me, make sure this is put here, make sure that's put there, press the button, disengage, continue compressions, whatever it tells you to do. And it was pretty cool. So I do think if your agencies are looking to get stuff, the less guesswork you have to do, the better. So invest in a good one, I would say, if you can. But
They all do the same thing. They all tell you what to do. They're all
oh,
FDA
do they?
approved. Yeah, I mean, they're all FDA approved to do the same thing. They all shock it.
Oh,
Each
okay.
manufacturer will tell you mine's the best because this one does this. Mine's got the better algorithm. FDA approved them all do the same shit. It shocks them when they're in
Ah,
cardiac arrest. Now it depends on all right, what bells and whistles do you want and how much do you want to pay for your program? Because there's a lot of them that come with a lot of cool stuff, but it's like, hey, you're going to pay 5 times more to run that AED than you are with one of these. Some of them have rechargeable batteries, some of them use over-the-counter batteries, some of them have $200 to $400 battery packs that are extremely expensive. You have to replace all the time. How often do your AED coordinators want to be out there pulling all the AEDs from the vehicles, inspecting them, switching out pads and batteries? Do you have one that lasts 5 years? Do you have one that uses over the counter batteries? Do you have one that uses no batteries and it's rechargeable? Like, these are all the things. I mean, some of the ones we've been working with now. There's an AED coming out this year that I've been working with that's that big, fits in my BDU pocket. It's got Bluetooth
what?
connectivity. It connects directly into medical direction, dual adult pediatric pads, rechargeable battery. You don't have to replace that shit. This is made for cops and this is made to really make a difference. I'm like, I don't have to carry
Holy
this
shit.
7 pound thing and run back to my vehicle to grab something to save a life anymore. I can throw it in my pocket when I'm going into a call. It's awesome.
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Impact Tactical. Impact is a tactical outfitter for the men and women of our military, police, fire departments, and other public safety around the country. Impact's core beliefs is that fearless men and women protect our freedom and safety should have access to the best tactical performance apparel, equipment, and tools on the market. And they shouldn't have to go broke to get it. I've used Impact for about 11 years, and I can attest that they do live up to their core values. So you get a personal recommendation from me. You can find them at impacttactical.com. That's MPAK tactical.com. And be sure to tell them that 2 Cops, 1 Donut sent you. All right. While we are dealing with some technical difficulties, I will say that we have several episodes coming out. I am going to actually pull those up and kind of give you a brief on what those are. I believe, and today is January 13th, so let me look at my episodes real quick. My next one is going to be Rick Mendoza. He is a sergeant, and he's going to be talking about the importance of having a men's kind of spiritual guidance group within a department, and mentoring, kind of looking out for each other. So we got that one. I got Bryce Lee, and I cannot remember for the life of me what that episode was about. I can't remember. I got Dr. Brandy Benson. Oh, he's back. Let's go
There you
back
go.
here. Can you hear me?
Yep, I got you now. I don't know what the hell that was.
It happens occasionally.
Actually, I
So
do not have to log out. I just call it. My wife called while I logged out, and she said she's picking up my kids, so I'm good to go.
oh, okay, nice. I was gonna say either way, it's fine. But okay, so we touched on the AEDs and how they're all pretty much the same as long as they're FDA approved. And then what I was trying to ask you about the pocket size one, I said, how much does that thing cost? I'd like to have one of those.
Dude, it's from what I understand, it's not. It just got FDA approved. I can't say the name of it yet because they haven't announced it, but I want
Oh,
to say
okay.
it's coming. It's going to be cheaper than most of the ones that are out there right now. From what I
Nice.
understand, it's going to be around that $1,000 mark. And dude, I'm going to have that in my go bag. I'm going to have that when I'm mountain biking. Like, I wish I could show you a picture of it, but it's an awesome piece of gear. The cool shit about that is that with their programs that are coming out, it's got Google Maps and Bluetooth, all this cool stuff on it. So if it's at a coffee shop and someone dies, it's connected to Rapid SOS, which 97% of our 911 systems are connected to.
Yeah.
So as soon as someone calls 911, say, hey, someone's not breathing, someone collapsed, whatever, that sends out once it goes to 911, it also sends a signal directly to the AED. The closest AED to that cellular tower starts going off and saying, hey, there's a cardiac arrest here. Take me there. Google Maps pops up with it. So if I'm driving on patrol and I got this AED in there, the AED could warn me that someone's dying a block away before my dispatcher can even input all the information in the call. So it's going to be a
Dude,
game changer, man. I'm so excited for this thing
that
to come out.
that is awesome. Yeah. I You got me a believer. I want to get one for the house now.
Yeah,
Uh
I already put an order in for at least a half a dozen of them for our training program. That way we can use them. And I also got some personal ones in that order too. So
Hell yeah. I don't blame you. All right, so let's say I'm an agency and I'm seeing this podcast and I'm like, you know what? We fucking need some training. We need to do this stuff. What are the steps? What do they need to go through to get a hold of your nonprofit? And what
you
can
can
they
go to
expect?
go to griffithblueheart.com, go to contact us. I'm also on LinkedIn under Brandon Griffith. I'll share my contact information with Eric before we get off here. But what we do is we partner with agencies, man. So many times, you know how it is. You get pawned off to like a training sergeant or somebody whose plate is already overfilled, and this is just another task they have to get thrown onto them. So we partner with agencies. We work from the top down. First, we'll do a presentation with your command staff, and we'll say, "Hey, look, this is who we are. This is what we do. This is how we do it. Are you interested in working with us?" And we show them how it is and say, "This is what our expectations are. This is what we will deliver to you." Once we partner with an agency, we help them from everything. We help them in identifying funding sources, whether it be from their city, county, state, whatever agency, or a grant, or a corporate sponsor, whatever it is. We will work with them to implement an entire program. We'll sit down with because you know how it is, man. What works for a small agency or county agency doesn't work for a large agency. Everyone's got different needs. So being able to figure out, hey, what kind of policies do you want? How are you going to deploy this? Are you going to assign these to vehicles? Are you going to assign these to officers? Are you going to assign this as a checkout program? What's going to work for your agency? What device do you want? These are the bells and whistles. This is the price cost. What's going to work for you? We sit down with them and show them a cost analysis, and they say, all right, we want to do this one. Okay, well, we distribute from almost all the manufacturers. We can help you do that, and we get law enforcement and nonprofit discounts for you. Once we implement that, we also say, all right, we need to train your guys in high performance resuscitation. We schedule it out. We put them through our full deluxe Cadillac course, which has been getting tons of great feedback. We do that. We do your dispatch protocols. We do your policies. We do you name it. We also do your research and tracking. We pair you up with your medical director. We put out an entire system of care, and then we help you do media and promote the program in the community. We help you guys do recognition for officer saves because so often, man, you know how it is on those dark days. Most cops, you save a life, something happens, you get slapped in the back, and you go 10-8, and you never hear from it again. There's no medals, there's nothing else. I can't tell you how many life saves I've gotten. You just go back and go 10-8 again. When you get to, as a survivor and as a cop, being able to meet the crew that worked on me and thank them, and being able to meet people who I've saved, you remember that for the rest of your life, man. When you get to
Yeah.
hug or shake hands with somebody whose life you saved, like that's an emotional connection for both sides, and we
Yeah.
love doing these ceremonies and getting them together, bringing out the media if they choose that way, and be able to connect them. And that closure for a survivor being able to thank their survivor or their saver, or that cop being able to meet someone whose impact they make is so incredibly valuable. When we get to put that together, it's great PR. It's great for them. It brings a lot of closure. And it's probably one of my favorite things we get to do.
Yeah, it's my buddy Javi that I had put the AD on and all that stuff. I didn't get a life-saving award. I didn't get nothing for that. However, whenever that man sees me, doesn't matter where we're at, he stops me, come here, hugs me, and we've got that, like, same with his wife. If he happens to be with his wife, hugs me. You know, on occasion she's made cookies. Around the anniversary time, stuff like that. So, there is that's the reward. Like, not that you're doing it to get a reward by any means, but
You save one life, man, it rings on an eternity. And I work with so many
yeah,
survivors around the world now that, both of my kids happened after my cardiac arrest. Neither one of them would have been born. I got to deliver both of my kids. And it's something I'll cherish forever. And I got guys that were saved that got to walk their daughters down the aisle, that got to meet their grandkids, that, you name it, man. It's an incredibly cool thing when you get to see what we actually get to do. We get to save that life, and being able to meet that person and be a part of it, man, is that cool. And that's
yeah.
something I love about this job. And that's some of the things we strive to do. And we do it in such a way that we don't violate HIPAA. We don't violate anybody's rights or medical information. But it's a great program, and we love getting cops together with those they help save.
Do you guys do any sort of community, like town hall meeting courses or anything like that? Because it would be really cool, especially like your cops programs or your whatever community program you have where the cops in the local community oh, excuse
Bless
me,
you.
patrol together, stuff like that, they're heavily involved, you know, to get the citizens on your side and understand, one, why this is an important cost to pony up to sometimes or get grants for, whatever it is, but having them on your side, and two, you're educating them to help themselves.
It's great. One of the things that we do is our guys will go and do custom presentations for city council members, for the community, for the town hall meetings. We'll go in and talk to them and say, look, we'll pull up their records with their state databases and we'll say, hey, look, this is how many people died in your city, your town, your county last year from heart disease. This is not theoretical. This isn't just some number from so and so association. This is your mortality stats. These can't be fudged. Dead is dead, right? So when you pull those numbers up and you say, this is how many people died in your community, this is your police officer's response time, this is your fire and EMS response time. 90% of the time, the cops are going to be on scene much, much faster. And we show them the numbers for real and they go, hey, wait a second. We know that for every minute someone's in cardiac arrest, the chance of survival goes down 10%. So you can say, look, this is the measurable outcome we can show you for witnessed events. How many lives can potentially be saved in your community next year? And everyone's like, this is a no-brainer. Like you look at the numbers, and we had 100 say we had 115 cardiac arrests in in this town last year. You're telling me cops are on scene in 3.3 minutes, and our fire and EMS isn't on scene for 7.5. That's 4 minutes of cops doing CPR and using an AED where someone's life could be saved. This makes sense. If we can save 4 or 5 dozen people next year, why wouldn't we do this? What kind of value can you put on a human life? You know what I mean?
Yeah, man, one of the things that I always try to open people's eyes to that's never done CPR or anything like that. I'm like, you don't know how taxing it is. I was trained in it, but the first time I actually had to do it, and I'm in shape, dude. Fuck, I was sweating all over the place, and when fire showed up, I was like, oh, please take over, please take over, you know,
Dude, the
and
longest I've done it switching off was 47 minutes with other
whoo,
crews. I was in hospital. Once we got him into the hospital and they're hooking him up to life support and doing all that, we were switching out every 2 minutes,
yeah,
47 minutes. By myself, 18 minutes on the side of the roadway, man. And it's like the first time I did CPR, I was in high school, man. It doesn't get easier, but you start learning techniques to last longer and do better at it. But
yeah,
yeah, there's definitely a dip in it, and it's very emotional, man. I can tell you, like, there's other aspects that people don't ever talk about. And after my cardiac arrest, I'm training this officer, and we got a call of a rollover accident. And they said the guy had slumped over the wheel before he didn't attempt to break it all. He slumped over the wheel, crashed into a barricade, and flipped. So I'm already thinking, is this a cardiac arrest? Is this a brain aneurysm? Is this the whatever the situation is? He already went down before we got out there. We show up, break the window, cut the seatbelt, extricate the guy, cut his clothes. We start working on him. We did CPR on him for like 16 and a half, 17 and a half minutes, something like that. We shocked him multiple times. We got a pulse back. The fire crew got him. We got the pulse back in the back of the ambulance. So we're like high five and we're like, hey man, we did this. He gets to the hospital. It turns out from the crash, he had irreversible brain and spine damage. Right. So they said, look, because of the quality of CPR you guys did, the guy's alive, but he's not coming out of it. He's a vegetable because of the brain damage and because he severed his spine in the car accident. So now we're like, shit, man, we just put this poor family with the decision. Now they have to decide to pull the plug. We gave them this false hope. Like, we're feeling horrible, man. And this is the first time I did CPR after my cardiac arrest from returning to the field. So I could tell you, I was not going to let this guy die during my time. Like, there were tears going down my face. It was bringing up all kinds of floods of emotion, man. But we
yeah,
get a call from the hospital, and the doc says, hey, the patient's mom is here, and we'd love for you to come to the hospital. We want to talk to you guys about it. So I take my rookie. We go to the hospital, and mom gives me a huge hug, and she says, thank you. Not only did I get to say goodbye, but he's an organ donor. So now all of his organs, his tissue, all of it save a whole bunch of other people's lives. He was able to give that gift to others. And that's something that people don't think about. The quality of CPR you do may not have the outcome you want, but organ and tissue donor is such a huge part of that for those that continue to live, giving them kidneys, giving them livers, giving them all these other things. All these other families were impacted because of the quality of CPR we did that day. So you might not get the save you think, but there's all these other aspects to it. And I could talk to you all day about this stuff.
yeah. I love it, man. I love it. All right, brother. I think we've hit what I wanted to hit on all of this. Is there anything you want to add? Is there anything we're missing?
To the officers that are listening to this, man, Don't play the machismo card. Don't play that I'm fine bullshit. We dismiss it all the time. We dismiss our own health. Like we already know we're at the higher risk. We get shit sleep. Prioritizing your sleep, taking care of yourself. Like, look, our bodies accrue so many chemicals. Every shift you're on, you're getting cortisol, you're getting dopamine, you're getting neuroepinephrine. You're supposed to relax after you get that. And going home and cracking up a beer in front of the TV is not relaxing. Being able to work off these chemicals in a healthy way, working out after your shift to burn off that stuff is going to help you in the long term. Figuring out ways to get your sleep, have a healthier diet, stop eating all the gas food junk shit we eat all the time and the drive throughs because it compounds over time, over and over and over and over. And it's going to lead to our deaths. Most cops die within the first 5 to 10 years of retiring. Our bodies go into overdrive. They're used to getting adrenaline spikes. They're used to being on patrol. They're used to being hyper vigilant. And when that stops and your body has to regulate itself again, you've already got glandular fatigue. Your body continues to have all these complications afterwards and it starts shutting down. That's why we have heart failure and heart attacks and strokes and aneurysms. And we all know those guys that retire and die within a few years. We need to start making those changes to protect ourselves and to be there for our families, our kids, our grandkids. So don't dismiss this shit when your chest hurts, when your hands tingling, when you're winded. That's not something to say I'm fine about. Like take your health seriously. Most agencies have got good insurance and you can get heart checks covered by your insurance. How many cops out there are actually getting an annual heart check? Almost none. You're lucky if they get a physical, but how many are getting, stress tests, EKGs, cardiac MRIs, calcium checks? Get that shit done, especially if you've been on like me and Eric for, 14 years. Go get your damn heart checked. You might have an enlarged heart. You might have these other issues that are going on, but don't dismiss that. If we can get a couple guys to go out from this podcast alone and go get their hearts checked, it's more than worth everyone's time, man. Because I can't tell you how many times I do these podcasts or I speak publicly, and guys call back, "Hey, man, thank you for this. I just took my kid in, and turns out he's got hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. You saved my son's life." Or, "Hey, we got my check. It turns out that I was this close to having a heart attack." All these guys call and tell me that they were able to do that. So I plead with you guys to take this shit seriously. Stop being dismissive. We need you guys around. We need you out here helping others. We need you being the leaders in the community that you are. So don't dismiss this and prioritize your heart health. Is all I got to say. And thank you for all you guys do.
Appreciate it, brother. I like it. All right, sir. We will end this. I appreciate you being on, and then just stick around once the recording ends, and we'll chit chat for a second. Okay?
Sounds great. Thank you.
All right, brother. Take it easy.